Let's
And
dive in a little bit
yeah,
deeper on the ISO RTO relationship to role and responsibility. Why don't you
yes.
go ahead and pick that apart?
Their key role is to manage the transmission system that
Hmm.
someone else owns for the members of the RTO. Now, when you manage the transmission system, what you're managing for is reliability. So what you have to do is take all the members of the RTOs, which are the utilities, you have to take their resource mix, which is controlled by their state if they're traditionally regulated, and you have to make it work. It's like a potluck dinner where everybody can bring what they want. And then it's the RTO's job to turn all the different stuff people bring into one meal. Now, that can be challenging because if everybody decides to bring dessert, then you got a problem. So it
Hmm.
creates this interaction between the RTOs and the state regulators in terms of trying to get the resource mix right. So the states are responsible for resource adequacy. That's having enough stuff, and the stuff that you have, the RTO is responsible for running it reliably. Now, managing a transmission system also includes transmission planning, because if you have states, you have local reliability stuff, which of course the local utility knows about. This is what we need for reliability. And then
Hmm.
NERC, which is the National Electric Reliability Council, has engineering standards that's what you're doing with reliability, is you're complying with NERC's engineering standards. But if you have two adjacent utilities, there might be one larger project that solves both utilities' reliability problem, but at a lower cost because it's one scale project rather than two small projects. The purpose of
But the
transmission
assets
planning,
themselves that are being managed by these RTOs are privately owned by the
yes,
investor
well,
owned or by somebody,
yes, they're owned by a
companies,
IOU, a
for-profit companies.
or a municipality,
Okay.
or
Okay.
a co-op. Now the IOUs are larger and own most of them.
Investor-owned
Yeah.
utilities, right? They own
Yes.
the largest bits and pieces of this transmission and
Yes.
distribution network, right? Okay. Okay.
Yes. And oftentimes it's munis and co-ops that want to buy generation from somewhere else and don't have transmission, that need to use the IOU's transmission system to enable the transaction.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah,
And
and we got
this
into a little
dovetails
bit of that.
directly into what you're talking about with the state level public utility commissions or public service commissions. Tell a little bit how the
Yes.
RTO works with this other organization that is
Yes.
responsible for
Yes.
reliability, right?
The RTO, where you have one, is responsible for reliability. What they have to do is make work what each state, when you have a multi-state RTO, brings to the table. Now, that's a little bit different when you have like New York, or you have ERCOT in Texas, or you have Cal ISO, where the state is the same. Now, there's still friction between these entities, but it's different. The key role of the PUC, PSCs, is regulation of retail rates.
Mm-hmm.
That is their key role, that when you're selling for end use, the person that actually uses the power, that rate is controlled by the state. Now, the state has different methods they can do that. They have authority to do it. They might choose to exercise that authority and have retail access, which gives the consumer choice among who their generation provider is, while transmission and the cost of transmission and the cost of distribution remain regulated, or they have the traditional rate case method. But the state is in charge of resource adequacy, which is amount of generation and generation mix, while the RTO, if you have one, is doing reliability. And those two clash, because one of the reasons you might not have reliability is if you don't have enough stuff. The
Yeah.
RTO doesn't have the ability to direct that there be more stuff. They're stuck with using what the states bring to the party to do their role. Now, the responsibility, okay, and they're appointed, the commissioners themselves are appointed typically by the governor or the municipality, like the city council, or the co-ops elect their board. There's a governance structure for all of it. On the PSC side, they're elected or they're appointed. Most are appointed. And all of this authority is a a legislative responsibility.
I got two
Rate-making.
questions here. I want to tie
Yeah.
into your buffet, potluck analogy, which is the RTO is hosting a potluck, and they're inviting all of these owners of these transmission and distribution assets, and the PUC PSC is responsible for who's invited and what they need to bring to the party. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, great. And so,
And
and
I
so,
just put into chat a book that actually reads like a biography, not an economics textbook. It's called
okay,
The Profits of Regulation. I should be able
okay,
to remember the author. It's the story of four people. The first person is the Adams that followed John Adams and John Quincy Adams. The third in that generation, his father and grandfather were president. He basically invented the concept of an expert panel delegated authority by the legislature. So he's in some ways, but really that book is like the history of the regulatory model, and
oh,
it's told in
fantastic.
biographical form. So it doesn't read like an economics textbook. So
Excellent,
Profits of
excellent.
Regulation, if you want to delve into the history of the PUCs, is a great resource.
I'm going to put that in the show notes too.